The Social Ties Unraveled, Intrigues, Alliances, and Transformations, Part 2. The notion of Liberty and Duncan forming a romantic connection appeared unlikely. Marrying into wealth wasn't a desire shared by Liberty, and neither of the sisters harbored lofty aspirations. Realizing the futility, Grandma May relinquished her matchmaking intentions. Exiting Liberty's eatery, Duncan returned to Lewis & Co., making his way into the office and reclining on the sofa. Extracting his phone, he sent a text message to Zachary. The office was hushed during the lunch break, providing Zachary a chance to catch up on sleep after convincing his wife to rest at the office. Duncan's ill-timed message, however, interrupted his slumber. Had Duncan not been his closest friend, Zachary would have threatened to teleport via radio waves just to chastise him. Stealthily leaving Serenity still asleep, Zachary gave her a tender peck on the lips before retrieving his phone. Moving with a degree of caution, he slipped into the office's rest area, mirroring Duncan's position on another sofa. "What do you want?" Zachary quipped as he answered Duncan's message. Still half asleep, Duncan responded, "Nothing." Zachary's patience wore thin, and he promptly dialed Duncan's number. Once the call connected, Zachary made sure his friend was fully aware of his annoyance. "I would have been in for a beating if you weren't Duncan." Duncan, seemingly unfazed, countered, "You can't be Zachary with that language." "You're lucky it's you," Zachary retorted, venting his frustrations. Saren finally made amends, agreeing to move back in and even prepare nutritious packed lunches for me. "I don't need any disturbances, especially from someone who's got nothing on his plate. You were asking for trouble." Amid Zachary's rant, Duncan chuckled, "Ah, so you've reconciled. We should catch up over dinner sometime now that things have improved. Remember, alcohol isn't your ally." Zachary's irritation subsided slightly as he vented, "All right, spill it. What's on your mind? Don't mess with my break." Satisfied that Zachary was back to his usual self, Duncan explained, "It's nothing much. I happened to pass by your sister-in-law's breakfast joint on my way to work. I dropped in for a visit, bringing Sunny a pinwheel, and your grandma was there. Did I give her any reason to be annoyed?" Duncan mused. "You expect me to know your every move? I'm not your shadow," Zachary retorted, dismissing Duncan's minor concerns. Duncan continued, undeterred, "Well, you seem to be in quite a mood. Must mean something's bothering you." Zachary couldn't help but feel that Duncan was making a fuss over nothing. In fact, both he and Josh rented out commercial spaces, and his annual rental income far exceeded Duncan's. With a pause, Duncan responded, "You're seriously agitated. Looks like there's something you're not getting." Annoyed by Duncan's persistence, Zachary quipped, "Let's see how thrilled you'll be when I interrupt your quality time with your lady." Duncan chuckled, his response veering into jest, "I haven't found my woman yet. She might not even exist. You and Josh now found your significant others, so we're operating in different spheres now. Maybe it's time for me to disassociate from both of you." Amid their playful banter, Duncan changed the subject, remarking, "By the way, did you hear about the Zimmer family? They've declared bankruptcy, and their property is up for sale to cover their debts. Are you considering buying it?" Zachary shrugged off the notion, replying, "I'd prefer investing in new developments. The Zimmer property is spacious, but it's second-hand." Duncan's playful tone returned, "Remember, the Zimmer family is neighbors with the Stones, your wife's aunt. Purchasing it could offer you the chance to revamp the place. It might make for a lovely marital home and facilitate your wife's access to her aunt's residence. I imagine she'd be thrilled." Zachary found himself rendered speechless. Once upon a time, the Zimmer family basked in prosperity and even shared a neighborhood with the esteemed Stone family. Regrettably, the family's descendants couldn't sustain their legacy, leading to financial struggles that compelled them to sell their ancestral home to settle their debts. "Seems like Clive struck a deal for the house," Duncan mused aloud. Given the proximity of the estates, it made sense for Clive to acquire the neighboring property, possibly dismantling the fence between them to expand the Stones' land area. With the Stones' substantial wealth, it was hard to envision anyone outmaneuvering Clive if he set his sights on a property. Duncan considered extending his help to gather more information for his friend. To make amends for the early morning disturbance, he aimed to be of assistance in some way. The thought of the Zimmer villa suddenly crossed his mind. Grabbing another phone, Duncan tapped his sources for information. Swiftly, a response came in: the Zimmer villa was not on the market. He had assumed Clive might be involved, but his sources confirmed that someone else had secured the property before Clive. Though pre-owned, the property's spacious grounds were highly coveted. As Duncan had previously noted, any buyer would likely initiate a comprehensive renovation, leaving the past behind to pave the way for new beginnings. Duncan shared the update with Zachary. "See, the prime estate is in high demand. Someone beat Clive to it." Curious, Zachary inquired, "Who managed to snag it?" "We don't know the details yet, but we'll find out soon," Duncan assured. Unperturbed, Zachary, with his extensive property holdings, weighed location, size, and the age of the property for long-term investment. His preferences lay with acquiring properties as is. "All right, enjoy your break, Zachary," Duncan quickly concluded, hanging up the call with no further topics to discuss. Freed from the call, Zachary muttered, "Weirdo," under his breath, momentarily interrupting the tender moment he shared with his sleeping wife. "Zachary," Serenity's voice gently interjected. Stepping out of the private resting area, Serenity called her husband. "You're awake, dear. Was the phone call the reason?" Quickly rising, Zachary moved to Serenity's side, his arm finding its way around her waist as he led her to the sofa, where they both settled down. "No, I woke up on my own. Who were you talking to on the phone?" Serenity inquired, her tone casual as she engaged in conversation. With an air of mild annoyance, Zachary replied, "It was Duncan. He called to discuss trivial matters, hardly worth mentioning. I can't fathom what got into him. It was quite an odd conversation." He went on to recount the details of his exchange with Duncan, fulfilling his promise to be open and honest with Serenity, provided the subject matter was not classified information. Sinking into the comfort of Zachary's embrace, Serenity let out a yawn and began, "I forgot to mention something to you." Curious, Zachary inquired, "What is it?" His attentiveness extended to every word that came from his wife, no matter how seemingly insignificant. "My money-hungry relatives are hatching a plan. They intend for my cousin to undergo surgery to resemble me and take my place as Mrs. York." Zachary's protective instincts instantly ignited. "My cousin is about my age and resembles me in certain ways due to our fathers. I can't say with certainty what she looks like now. It has been more than 10 years since I last saw her." Zachary's tone held a hint of sarcasm. "These people have truly outlandish ideas. Saren, are you sure my father-in-law is your grandparent's son?" Unfazed, Serenity responded, "In such cases, it's not about blood relations but about parental favoritism. Sometimes, the natural child receives less attention than the adopted one." Harriet's pursuit of plastic surgery seemed evident, yet Serenity was clueless about the intended location of the procedure. She implored Zachary's assistance in preventing her cousin from impersonating her, shedding light on the situation that Noah had divulged when apprehended by Zachary's bodyguards. Noah had hinted at helping Harriet imitate Serenity's mannerisms. Serenity and the Hunts had long since lost all desire to be reconciled. The Hunts harbor bitterness toward Serenity for failing to provide for them financially and being the main factor in their substantial financial woes. The plan to replace Serenity with Harriet aimed to gain an insider's advantage while seeking revenge on Serenity and Zachary. Swiftly, Zachary summoned Josh, entrusting him with the task. Serenity observed her husband intently as he communicated with Josh. Zachary's eyes held a glimmer of determination as he reassured her, "I've got you, Saren. I won't let them succeed." He continued, voicing a perspective that Josh had likely shared, "The Hunts will resort to any means of revenge when cornered. Now that they have nothing left to lose, they're capable of anything." In agreement, Serenity noted, "They're a persistent nuisance." Tenderly, she caressed Zachary's cheek, her voice carrying a gentle plea, "Zachary, I want." Zachary leaned in, his lips dangerously close to hers, his eyes narrowing with a playful gleam as he leaned in for a kiss. Serenity smiled into the kiss, reciprocating his passion. As their lips danced, Zachary's husky whisper reached her ear, its meaning clear to her despite its inaudibility. However, it was that time of the month, and she gently pushed him away. "Zachary, I'm not angry about the extra security measures you took without my knowledge." Zachary's kiss followed her words, and he explained, "The security isn't for spying on you, Saren. It's for your safety. With your identity exposed, there are numerous people after you. You can't be confined to the house indefinitely. I did it for your well-being." Unwilling to admit that he wanted to be privy to her every move, he added, "I just worry." Serenity responded empathetically, "I understand your concerns. The bodyguards proved useful in uncovering the Hunts' intentions. Perhaps intensifying the surveillance on them will yield evidence when they resort to desperate measures. Once they are imprisoned, they'll cease their pursuits." Zachary's principles prevented him from crossing legal boundaries, even with his power. She admired his commitment to the law, not wanting him to compromise his integrity because of their adversaries. Serenity and Zachary's strategy hinged on waiting for the Hunts to commit a rash act or crime that would land them behind bars. "Is there anything they're particularly drawn to?" Zachary inquired. "They're into gambling. It's a favorite pastime for most of the elderly in town. After lunch, they often gather for a round of gambling. I can't say for sure whether my uncles participate, but it wouldn't be surprising if they've picked up the habit," Serenity responded. A glint of calculation appeared in Zachary's eyes as he formulated a plan. Yet, he chose not to reveal his thoughts, instead reassuring Serenity, "Leave them to me. Don't invest your energy in them. I'll be by your side no matter the circumstances. Pursue what you want to do." Concerned about the evening's event, Serenity gave him a playful glance. "Are you sure you don't want me to accompany you tonight? We've never attended a social function as a couple." Serenity looked askance at him. "You're the great mister, your security detail will be all over you at social events." Zachary's response carried a trace of nostalgia. "You underestimate me. My security detail won't be as stifling at social gatherings. Times have changed." There was a time when they attended the same event, with Serenity as her best friends plus one. Unbeknownst to her, Zachary was also present, keeping his identity hidden. Serenity's voice softened, "Wait until I'm confident enough to stand beside you openly. I'll make you come to events with me, even if you resist." Rising from her seat, Serenity leaned over, arms on either side of Zachary. Give me a kiss, handsome. I must be off, Zachary chuckled, you're quite the flirt. You secretly enjoy it every time, Serenity teased, playfully biting his lip. Take care of yourself. No starving this time. If anything happens to you, well, I might just use your money to get myself a boy toy. That'll teach you. Zachary's response carried a playful tone, I might come back from the afterlife just to see about that. As they embraced, Zachary spoke affectionately, Saren, I'll look after my health, ensuring we grow old together. As long as you're by my side, I'm content. They parted, and Serenity brought up the packed food. Send June to collect dinner. It's time for you to get back to work. I'm heading back to the shop. Elisa might already be there waiting. Reluctantly, Zachary accompanied her out of the office, his gaze following her car until it disappeared. Observing the scene, the security guards exchanged knowing looks, silently speculating about the state of Mr. York and his wife's relationship. Minutes later, Zachary re-entered the office building, a subtle smile gracing his features. One of the security guards dared to venture a guess from his expression, the couple had likely reconciled. Inside the office, the employees of York Corporation shared a collective sigh of relief. With the couple's affections apparently restored, a sense of tranquility returned to the workplace. The employees could only hope for their continued harmony, as another bout of arguments was unwelcome. The events showcased Serenity's irreplaceable position in Zachary's life. She was a unique and cherished presence, firmly embedded in his heart. Zachary was undoubtedly an uxorious husband, unapologetically devoted to his wife. After returning to his office, Zachary didn't immediately immerse himself in work. Instead, he placed a call to his mother, Tanya. This was a rarity, as Zachary usually contacted her only for significant matters. Thus, Tanya's anxiety spiked upon receiving her eldest son's call. Given the delicate state of Zachary and Serenity's relationship, Tanya felt helpless as a mother and mother-in-law. Zach, Tanya's voice carried a mixture of concern and relief. Zachary, attuned to his mother's emotions, responded in a soothing tone, Mom. Clive's wife is expecting. Initially taken aback, Tanya soon lightened up. That's news to celebrate. The news of Alice's pregnancy hadn't yet reached the public, as the influential family was strategic about its timing. The announcement was reserved for after the first trimester. Given Serenity's relationship to the family as Mrs. Stone's niece, it made sense that she knew of the pregnancy and relayed it to Zachary. For Tanya, this signified that Zachary and Serenity had reconciled, bringing her joy. Her happiness wasn't solely for Alice. I'll arrange some supplements to send to the Stones, Tanya offered. Zachary expressed his gratitude to his mother. Tanya continued, our relationship with the Stones is secondary, Mrs. Stone is Serenity's aunt. While we wouldn't need to intervene if we weren't informed about Alice's pregnancy, now that we are, a show of respect is appropriate. Sending gifts is the least I can do. Tanya then inquired about when Zachary intended to bring Serenity to the manor for dinner. He responded, I'll arrange for her to visit when she has some free time. Tanya added, make sure to talk to her sister as well. We should involve her in the wedding preparations. Observing all the traditions is important. Why don't you share your sister-in-law's address? I can discuss the wedding arrangements with her. Zachary clarified, my sister-in-law is currently renting a place. I intended to give her a house, but both she and Serenity declined. Tanya fell silent briefly before reflecting, Serenity's independence in earning her own money likely resonated with your grandmother. She's not drawn to York's wealth and reputation. Serenity and her sister's ability to remain true to themselves in a materialistic world was commendable. However, Tanya couldn't help but feel uneasy about Serenity's money-hungry relatives. The Hunts were a source of frustration for Tanya, a ruthless and unreasonable family. She had never encountered such a vexatious group. Speaking of property matters led Zachary's thoughts to the Valentine's gift he had intended for Serenity. Despite his intentions, Serenity hadn't accepted the gift. Zachary had contemplated asking Jasmine to mediate, but she advised him to handle it personally. He had even considered transferring his personal assets to Serenity, but she had declined. Nevertheless, she had agreed to keep important paperwork such as title deeds, albeit under the threat of disposal. Despite her refusal, this was a small win in terms of compromise. Yet, Serenity had returned the black card to him, a symbol of her strong will. Despite his affection, Zachary found it difficult to offer her anything, given her reluctance to accept gifts. Serenity's stubbornness was undeniable, yet Zachary's love for her remained unwavering. Zachary's conversation with his mother shifted to a topic he had previously discussed with both her and Serenity: etiquette lessons. Tanya was eager to provide guidance, but Zachary informed her of Serenity's decision to seek help from her aunt. He explained, she'll be attending social events with her aunt, starting tonight. With Mrs. Stone's mentorship, she'll learn more efficiently than through formal lessons. Understanding Serenity's choice, Tanya responded, "Very well. If she wants to, I can accompany her to social events too." Tanya's involvement in Serenity's life had been minimal, partly because she perceived Zachary to be out of Serenity's league. Tanya believed that taking Serenity under her wing could jeopardize their amicable relationship. She acknowledged the wisdom of involving Mrs. Stone in Serenity's social integration. Zachary suggested, "You can collaborate with Nana and the other aunts to organize celebrations and provide Serenity with practice runs at home." Zachary appreciated his mother's relatively open-minded approach compared to other parents who intervened more forcefully in their children's relationships. Despite her reservations about Serenity, Tanya refrained from openly expressing her disapproval, which Zachary respected. With his conversation concluded, Zachary immersed himself in his work, determined to earn more and secure his wife's financial well-being. Meanwhile, in a parked black sedan, a person monitored the all-you-can-eat diner from a distance. The person inside, Jessica, pointed out Liberty to her brother Oscar. She narrated Liberty's divorce from Hank, highlighting her substantial financial settlement and its impact on Hank's financial constraints. Jessica harbored resentment towards Liberty due to her role in Hank's life and the subsequent turmoil it brought her family. She outlined her intentions to Oscar, explaining, "My mother-in-law and sister-in-law regret their falling out with her. Hank still supports them, visiting their son. While I'm not pleased with this, I can't interfere since I'm not pregnant and don't have a child." Jessica had a vengeful plan in mind. She detailed her request: arrange for troublemakers to disrupt her diner's operations subtly, affecting her reputation and business. I want her to suffer as we did when Hank and I lost our jobs. Jessica emphasized the need to avoid severe actions, considering Liberty's connections. She was wary of the Stone family's potential retaliation. Why should she enjoy a good life while I suffer? Jessica seethed, driven by a desire for justice. Fueled by resentment over her in-law's perceived favoritism towards Liberty, she vowed to emerge as the ultimate victor in their ongoing rivalry. He apprehensively responded, "Jessica, Liberty has significant connections. Hiring troublemakers could backfire. Her relatives are affluent and influential, they're not adversaries to mess with. Did you mention that her brother-in-law is the heir of the wealthy York family? That's even more reason to steer clear." You're aware of the reputation of the Yorks, right? Their renown extends even to our rural area. Frankly, $100,000 isn't worth the potential risk for me. Jessica grimaced, attempting to appeal to her brother's empathy. I'm your sister, Oscar. Can you just let it slide when someone is making my life a living nightmare? Oscar held his ground, responding firmly, how is she making your life miserable? Let's be honest here, Jessica. You misled us. Hank was already married with a son when he entered your life. Instead of ending his marriage, you became his mistress, breaking apart his family. You concealed that truth from us. We thought you had found a decent man. Do you think I don't see through you? My bet is that you're targeting this Liberty girl. In the end, you're the homewrecker here. Your actions should bring shame, not a desire for revenge. He continued, being a single mother running a business is tough enough. Yet, you're trying to strip her of her only livelihood. I'd defend you if she had bullied you, but did she? The substantial divorce settlement she received is her business with Hank. The Browns aren't responsible for Hank's refusal to provide over $700,000. You're favoring Hank over your own family. You're holding back money that we need for our houses and cars. Oscar believed that his sister had treated him and Jack poorly. He viewed the assistance he received from her as mere crumbs, not worth the potential fallout with the formidable York and Stone families. Initially, the Yates family was in the dark about Hank's wife and child. They only learned of Jessica's role as a homewrecker when Hank divorced and began discussing marriage with Jessica. This revelation disappointed the Yates family, as Hank was a divorcee while Jessica was a young woman who had never been married before. Despite Hank being only 31 years old, the terms of the relationship seemed skewed in his favor. As Hank owned a valuable house and car and enjoyed a substantial annual income, the Yates family audaciously demanded $777,777 as a wedding gift, a staggering sum for Witherspoon's modest standards. This demand was astronomical, causing shock within the community, where typical wedding gifts were significantly smaller. Mrs. Brown had advised Jessica that she wasn't made of gold. The Yates didn't reciprocate with gifts of equivalent value. They intended to offer practical items like bedding, while the money obtained from the Browns was directed toward the Yates brothers. This skewed exchange frustrated both the Browns and Jessica, feeling as though her family was capitalizing on her marriage for their own gain. With the marriage finalized, Jessica had little leverage left, as her parents' demands were null and void. She concluded, "You're capable of earning money to buy a house in the city. My husband and I are currently unemployed and need money for the wedding, the reception, home renovations, and other expenses. Financial constraints are a reality now. Wasn't it you and Jack who prompted Mom and Dad to ask for such a substantial sum? You won't find any other family demanding that much as a wedding gift. How would you feel if your children's in-laws insisted on such an exorbitant amount? That kind of money would be beneficial for Hank and me as we begin our family. How can I just let Hank give it away? Yes, it's a formality. The $777,777 might be lucky for you, but all I'm receiving in return is $7,000 and nothing more. Mom and Dad are set to receive $100,000, while you and Jack are each getting $300,000. Why are they essentially selling their daughter to provide their sons with everything they want?" Confronted by her sister's challenging questions, Oscar's face reddened, and he retorted, "You're showing preference for outsiders over family. We're your siblings. You should be able to ask for more, considering they're wealthy. Yet, now that you're married, you can't ask for anything. You went behind our backs and married Hank. Look, That $777,777 gift is now $70,000. Why can't you support Jack and me, especially when you're living a comfortable life in the city? Siblings are supposed to help one another. Just because I'm your sister doesn't mean I'm indebted to you. Why should I provide you with all the assistance when life is far from perfect for me? Why should I give you everything? What about me? I don't even know if I have a bedroom, let alone a home with Hank. Why should I suffer while you enjoy your life? We're all mom and dad's children. Yes, I owe my parents, and I'm not saying I won't support them financially. You can contribute to their medical bills too, just like I can if they fall ill. I don't owe you and Jack anything. You're not really part of this family anymore, considering you've taken Hank's last name. Do as you please. I don't have time for you. Oscar, unable to gain the upper hand in the argument, grimaced and opened the car door, ready to walk away. Jessica was just as furious. The thought of the $5,000 made her demand, "Give me back that $5,000, Oscar." She expected him to return the money, considering he wasn't cooperating. Oscar sprinted away, leaving Jessica frustrated. He believed that his sister wouldn't cause a scene over such a small sum. While Jessica didn't want to strain her relationship with her brother over a modest amount of money, she was frustrated with how the situation escalated. Her family's actions repeatedly disappointed her. She saw no harm in seeking a bit more financial assistance. Marrying into the family without gaining anything from it would make Hank undervalue her. Without requesting anything, Liberty married into the Browns. Typically, wedding gifts, whether in the form of items or money, were given according to local customs and prevailing practices. However, Jessica's parents demanded a considerable sum to allocate to her brothers, leaving Jessica with nothing to establish her own family. Jessica was unwilling to agree to such terms. Now that Hank had put her in charge of their finances, she was responsible for covering all the expenses for their household needs. Every time she paid a bill, she felt the financial strain. With their lack of employment, Jessica and Hank were eating into their limited savings, necessitating a budget-conscious approach. Jessica was taking control of their financial situation. She contributed 1/3 of her previous salary to her family, spent another third, and saved the remainder. At least, she managed to build some personal savings. Stepping out of the car, Jessica locked it and collected her Louis Vuitton bag, a gift from Hank during their dating days. Hank emphasized that he had never purchased anything expensive for Liberty but believed Jessica deserved only the best. Jessica agreed to be his partner because Hank was generous and attractive. Clutching her Louis Vuitton bag, she walked towards All You Can Eat with her head held high, projecting confidence. However, before reaching the diner, she noticed a car pulling up in front of it. Jessica recognized the vehicle. It belonged to her sister-in-law, Chelsea. Pausing in her tracks, Jessica decided to postpone entering for the time being. She was curious about the reason behind Chelsea and her mother-in-law's visit to Liberty. Inside, Liberty and Grandma May were discussing plans for a party to celebrate the diner's upcoming opening. Suggesting the Wiltspoon Hotel due to the York's ownership, Grandma May recommended a discounted rate, if not a free arrangement. Liberty, however, maintained that she preferred not to receive it for free but rather at a discounted price. She contemplated cooking herself for the event, considering her breakfast-focused business allowed her to close in the afternoon. Recognizing the potential for a close-knit celebration, Grandma May encouraged Liberty to reserve tables at the hotel. Gratefully, Liberty accepted the offer this time, understanding the importance of balancing warmth with business propriety. Meanwhile, young Sonny was occupied by himself in a corner of the restaurant. Upon the entry of his grandmother and aunt, He greeted Mrs. Brown with a hello. The way Mrs. Brown regarded Sonny seemed as if he were a source of fortune. Despite not having spent much time with him, the separation had now brought forth a deep interest in her only grandson. Mrs. Brown swept Sonny into her arms, peppering his cheeks with kisses until his little frown prompted her to ease up. She began, "Sonny, I didn't manage to bring you a toy this time, as I was in a hurry. Instead, I'll give you some money, and you can go shopping with your mom. You can pick out anything you like." With that, Mrs. Brown produced a stack of bills and handed several $100 notes to Sonny. "Mrs. Brown," Liberty intervened promptly, taking Sonny from her grasp. She explained, "Please, don't give Sonny money. He's still quite young, and I worry he might start expecting money for every purchase if it becomes a habit." Undeterred, Mrs. Brown responded, "Then you take it, Liberty. It's meant for Sonny's enjoyment." Handing the money to Liberty, she urged her to accept it. However, Liberty declined, saying, "Mrs. Brown, Sonny has everything he needs. You don't have to worry. Feel free to keep the money for yourself." Liberty had learned from Mrs. Brown's visits that Hank provided his parents with a smaller allowance. Jessica curbed their allowance, as they were already receiving a government pension. Jessica feared her parents-in-law might redirect the funds to her sister-in-law. "I have the means, and this is for my grandson. Please take it," Mrs. Brown insisted once again. Grandmommy chimed in, "Liberty, this is a gesture from Sonny's grandmother. Accept it graciously. She hasn't bought clothes for Sonny before. Use the money to buy him some new outfits." Reluctantly, Liberty accepted the money from Mrs. Brown. Meanwhile, Chelsea's jealousy festered. Liberty's renovated diner looked splendid, and Chelsea resented her impending success. Chelsea dreamed of starting her own business but struggled to secure funding. Jessica was unwilling to invest in her husband's construction business. Chelsea was hesitant to commit her own money. Curiosity prompted Chelsea to inquire, "When's the grand opening of your diner, Liberty?" She wore a strained smile. With concern, she continued, "Your health is paramount, Liberty. Look at how much weight you've lost. You had it easy with our family. Back then, you were so thin, but Hank took great care of you." Her remarks were met with a collective glare from those around her. Chelsea awkwardly laughed and admitted, "I'm just being candid." Liberty responded curtly, "I'm following a diet." "Why bother with a diet? You looked happier and more vibrant before. Stop losing weight, you look perfect as you are now." The entire Brown family was invested in Liberty's appearance. They hoped she wouldn't regain her former allure, believing she'd become desirable once again. They secretly wished for her and Hank to reunite. Rekindling their romance would be lucrative, as Hank would attain a prominent position within York Corporation. Rumors swirled that senior executives there earned several million in annual income. Yet, the financial gains were secondary. Their true desire was to enjoy the benefits of a close association with the wealthiest family in Wolfspoon. "Liberty, are you currently hiring? I find myself jobless, and my age makes it quite challenging to secure a position. I can't compete with those younger girls out there. If you're open to hiring, I'd be content with a monthly wage of $8,000, inclusive of meals and accommodation." Switching gears, Chelsea shifted the conversation. Mrs. Brown echoed her daughter's sentiments and addressed her former daughter-in-law, saying, "Liberty, Chelsea has been unemployed for a while now. Running the diner and looking after Sonny will undoubtedly be demanding. Hiring an extra hand might be beneficial. Chelsea is not an outsider, and she's known for her dedication as an employee. It's safer to consider hiring her rather than someone unfamiliar. You wouldn't want to risk hiring a potential thief." I can take care of Sunny, allowing you to focus on your business. However, if Mrs. Brown took charge of Sunny's care, Liberty would need to visit the Browns' home to pick him up, potentially encountering Hank. Liberty and Hank had a long history together, including a shared son, which could lead to old sparks reigniting. The Browns might use this situation to manipulate Hank into getting back with Liberty. The Browns' household had been anything but peaceful since the Yates girl entered their lives. With a grave expression, Liberty responded, "I'm not currently hiring, I can't afford it." The proposition of an $8,000 monthly salary was beyond Liberty's means. As a small business owner, she struggled to break even, let alone turn a significant profit. Even if she were considering hiring help, she wouldn't be able to afford such a salary. Moreover, Liberty had no intention of hiring Chelsea. "I can manage Sunny. He'll be starting kindergarten in September." Liberty was well aware of Mrs. Brown's ulterior motives. The older woman was attempting to manipulate the situation to reunite her son Hank with Liberty. Yet, Liberty had no intention of remarrying Hank. Although she once held feelings for him, the messy divorce had eradicated any lingering affection. Hank was now a closed chapter in her life. She preferred to be a single mother than subject herself to another tumultuous relationship with Hank. The Browns had second thoughts now, possibly due to Liberty's well-off aunt and her sister's marriage into a wealthy family. Similar to the money-hungry Hunts, the Browns were primarily focused on their own interests. "Why are you unable to hire? You certainly have the resources. Hank provided you with a substantial divorce settlement. Opening a restaurant doesn't require an exorbitant sum. I suppose you're hesitant to hire me. Liberty, regardless of everything, we were once a family, and you." Under her mother's urging, Chelsea's words trailed off. This tactic was familiar. Chelsea was used to getting her way with Liberty. While Mrs. Brown headed to the restroom, Grandma May discreetly reached for her phone and dialed Zachary's number. Zachary answered promptly, conveying his positive mood, likely influenced by serenity. This was the way of the York men, wholly devoted to their beloved, emotions stirred only by their wives. "What's the matter, Nana?" Zachary inquired. Detecting his good spirits, Grandma May pressed on, "Give me Duncan's number. I don't have it saved, but I need to urgently speak to him about something." "You can confide in me, Nana. No need to reach out to Duncan." "I don't need you. Stop probing and just give me Duncan's number." Zachary skeptically shared his best friend's number with his grandmother. Persistently, he pressed, "Nana, what's going on? Why do you need to speak to Duncan?" "It's none of your concern. Get back to your work." Following this brisk exchange, Grandma May promptly ended the call with her grandson. Meanwhile, on the other side, Zachary found himself lost for words. Was it wrong of him to be a bit inquisitive? Dialing Duncan's number, Grandma May's voice trembled with urgency as he picked up. "Duncan, it's dire. It's terrible. Those insensible people are after Liberty once again. They're envious of Liberty's diner and demanding she transfer ownership to them. Liberty can't handle these two women on her own anymore. She's no longer the woman she was at 200 pounds. As an elderly lady, I can only offer limited help. I couldn't even frighten them away by lying on the ground. My only option is to call for your aid. Your office is conveniently close by. Could you send over a few security guards?" Without granting Duncan a chance to respond, Grandma May ended the call. "If you show up here in person, I'll know your intentions. But if you send your security guards instead, I might misjudge you." Gripping her phone, Grandma May exited the restroom. At this point, It was unclear what the Browns had said, but Liberty appeared visibly furious, chasing them out. Grandmommy contemplated dragging Mrs. Brown and Chelsea back, realizing that Duncan needed them present to fulfill the role of the hero. Fortunately, she could rely on the Browns to remain in the vicinity, as they were refusing to depart so abruptly. Liberty, Chelsea is facing a difficult situation. Hank's financial situation is tight due to the upcoming wedding. You don't spend much on yourself or Sonny. Your sister can assist you, after all. You can easily lend Chelsea $200,000 to start a business. It's just a loan, so you needn't worry. Family should help each other. Yet, the true reason for Mrs. Brown and Chelsea's visit was to secure funds from Liberty to support George's business venture. Maintaining a composed expression, Liberty clicked her tongue in irritation. "Spare me the family act. My mother only bore me and Saran. We have no blood ties. You'd best leave before I grab a broom." Liberty was well aware that her relatives were more than capable of dealing with her former in-laws. It was bound to be a clash of stubborn personalities. "No matter what, I'm Sonny's aunt. Consider his well-being." "You're Sonny's aunt, not mine. Sonny depends on me now, so using his name won't sway me. Get out. Stop coming here to create trouble." Chelsea scowled. "Either lend me the money or give me a job. Otherwise, I'm not budging. You can't force me to leave." With that, Chelsea seated herself at a table. Liberty's patience was wearing thin, the audacity of these people. Grandma May observed silently, not intervening. Liberty then decided to unblock Hank's contact and gave him a call. Waiting for him to pick up, she spoke with an icy tone, "Hank, get your mother and sister out of here. They came to criticize you and Jessica again. I've had enough of their nonsense." Hank was taken aback. Wasn't his mother and sister seeking financial help from Liberty? How did things devolve into them bad-mouthing him and Jessica? "I'll head over there immediately, Liberty. I apologize for my mother and sister's behavior," Hank expressed before concluding the call. Gathering his car keys, he turned to his father. "Dad, Mom and Chelsea are causing a scene at Liberty's diner again. Join me in fetching them back." Wearing a grim expression, Mr. Brown took a moment to process the news. They really have nothing better to do. The harmony the family had once enjoyed had disintegrated. It took Hank getting remarried for Mrs. Brown and Chelsea to realize Liberty's worth. Now, their relentless pestering of Liberty had become embarrassing. "I'll take your mother back to our hometown after the wedding. We won't come to the city unless absolutely necessary," Mr. Brown suggested, hoping the physical distance would provide some respite and allow the newlyweds some space. It might put an end to the daily disputes and offer Liberty a reprieve. Hank's silence signified his acceptance of his father's decision. Just as Liberty hung up the call, Duncan entered through the glass door, accompanied by a contingent of security personnel. She was left dumbfounded. What was happening? Internally, Grandma May mused, "Oh my, reinforcements have arrived." "Remove these disruptive women," Duncan commanded upon entering, instructing his security team to escort the mother and daughter out. His face tensed, and a grimace crept across his features as he stepped outside the restaurant, confronting the Browns, who were trembling in fear. "As the owner of half the commercial spaces, are you trying to disrespect me by causing issues for my tenant? Continuing to trouble my tenant will lead you to grave consequences. Leave now." "We'll leave immediately." Terrified, Mrs. Brown hurriedly fled the scene, clutching her daughter's arm as they hastened to their car and drove away. Meanwhile, Jessica observed the entire spectacle from outside. With Duncan's arrival accompanied by security, it was her cue to retreat to her car. She clandestinely watched and even recorded a video to show Hank later. Liberty had evidently moved on and found a new partner. Hank was part of the past now, he should focus on his life with Jessica. Following the departure of the mother and daughter, Duncan re-entered the diner, leaving his security personnel stationed outside. The presence of a dozen uniformed men in the vicinity attracted the attention of Liberty's neighbors, who curiously peeked out to observe the commotion. These onlookers were unaware of Duncan's identity as their landlord, as he had delegated rent collection to someone else. They had no inkling that the scarred-faced man was the true proprietor. As Duncan exchanged glances with the wife of Liberty and Grandma May, who was observing intently, a suspicion began to dawn on him that he might have been set up. Although elderly, Grandma May was far from frail, and Liberty was far from submissive. Together, they could have handled Mrs. Brown and Chelsea without needing Duncan to intervene as a hero. Realizing he might have fallen into a trap, Duncan outwardly maintained composure as he approached Sunny with an air of nonchalance. Kneeling down, he playfully pulled Sunny into an embrace. However, Sunny didn't take kindly to Duncan's sudden hugs and began to resist. "You might be a little scared, Sunny, but there's no need to be. I'm here to rescue you." Liberty was left speechless. Grandma May found herself speechless in the midst of the unfolding events. Shaking off her stupor, Liberty inquired, "Mr. Lewis, how do you know they were here?" Ceasing his playful tussle with the reluctant Sunny, Duncan released the boy with a resigned smile. Despite his efforts and the pinwheels he bestowed upon Sunny, the 3-year-old remained unswayed. Duncan felt a pang of defeat, unable to truly win the affection of the young boy. "Grandma May contacted me," Duncan explained. "She informed me that your ex-mother-in-law and sister-in-law were causing trouble at your establishment. She urged me to hurry over with security, concerned that they might distress Sunny and harm her in the process." Gradually comprehending the situation, Liberty felt a sense of days lifting. So, that's why Duncan had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. It turned out that Grandma May had reached out to him for assistance. It made sense considering the proximity of Lewis & Co. to her diner. Without overthinking it, Liberty expressed her gratitude. "They have no shame, but I won't let them intimidate me. My plan was to splash them with water, but your timely arrival saved me the trouble. Thank you, Mr. Lewis." Duncan offered reassurance, "What's important is your safety. If they return, don't hesitate to send them packing. Engaging with such people isn't worth your energy." Liberty had the option to involve law enforcement if Mrs. Brown and Chelsea resorted to vandalizing her property. However, since their visit was driven by their financial needs and not destructive intentions, there was no reason to involve the authorities. As Duncan's departure neared, he addressed Grandma May and Liberty, "I should return to work. Give me a call if you require assistance. I'll ensure increased security measures around here to prevent a repeat of this incident." Duncan exited as quickly as he had arrived, leaving within 10 minutes. Unbeknownst to Liberty, Grandma May had been subtly probing Duncan's character. After he departed with his security team, Liberty remarked to Grandma May, "Mr. Lewis is a wonderful landlord. I chose this location not just due to the high foot traffic, but also because there are many offices nearby, including Lewis & Co. I believe I can establish a successful breakfast diner here." It's clear that Mr. Lewis values his tenants beyond mere profit. A chuckle escaped Grandma May as she observed the unfolding dynamics. Although Duncan owned half the block, other tenants remained unaware of his identity and his protective stance. Grandma May was well aware of this fact but refrained from vocalizing it. At this point, Duncan and Liberty's relationship had not escalated beyond a friendly rapport, as observed by Grandma May. She aimed to quietly observe the developments without interjecting. Upon his return to the office, Duncan reached out to his best friend to share his experience. "Zach, what's going on with your Nana? She can handle the situation herself, but she called me for assistance. I have this strange feeling when she looks at me, like she's channeling my grandmother." Confused, Zachary inquired, "Can you clarify? I'm not following. Why did my Nana contact you? Who did you meet?" Duncan began to connect the dots to his friend. "It was your sister-in-law's former mother-in-law and sister-in-law causing a scene at the diner. Your Nana asked for my help. Zachary, I'm starting to think your Nana might be inhabited by my granny's spirit. There's something odd going on with her behavior." Finally grasping the situation, Zachary realized that his Nana must have picked up on something and was attempting to gauge Duncan's character. With an air of nonchalance, Zachary responded with a hint of amusement, "When Nana called, you could have dispatched some of the men to assist her." "Wait, did you actually leave your work to aid my sister-in-law in shooing away 2 women?" Duncan grinned, recounting the scenario. "It wasn't just me. I rallied a dozen security guards from my office and stormed in like a SWAT team." With a chuckle, Zachary teased, "That might be a bit of an overkill, don't you think?" Unperturbed, Duncan replied, "Zachary, what's your Nana up to? Does she suspect that I have feelings for Liberty? Honestly, I have a soft spot for Sunny, nothing more." Zachary couldn't help but perceive Duncan's eagerness to explain as a confirmation of his feelings. Grandma May's intuition was often on point. She wouldn't have probed Duncan if she didn't suspect his interest in his sister-in-law. Zachary had noticed that destiny seemed to intertwine Duncan and Liberty. Despite Wiltspoon's bustling nature, the two kept crossing paths. If it wasn't fate, then what else could it be? I cherished Sunny as well. Whether you like my sister-in-law or not is your business. It's not my concern. But I do hope your fondness is directed solely towards Sunny and not on Liberty." Knowing Duncan intimately as his best friend, Zachary was aware that he and his sister-in-law weren't a suitable match, largely due to Mrs. Lewis' influence. Being a divorcee, Liberty wouldn't find favor with Mrs. Lewis, even if she were single. "Absolutely, it's all for Sunny's sake," Duncan affirmed. "I genuinely care for the child. Why would you all assume I'm interested in Liberty?" Even if Duncan displayed concern for Liberty, it stemmed solely from her role as Sunny's mother. "Zachary, kindly ask your Nana not to play matchmaker for me." Zachary responded with a playful grin, "Is Nana turning into a Cupid?" "You seem concerned that she might set her sights on you. No worries though. Nana has her hands full with her grandsons. She's not diverting her attention to her grandson's best friends just yet. Mr. Young Johnson even asked me to set up Remy with someone. Otherwise, I wouldn't interfere." Well, Nana successfully played the matchmaker for Mr. Young Johnson, which was why he sought her help. "I think Nana could launch her own dating agency to pair eligible bachelors like you with potential partners. Nana's skills could certainly make her a success in the industry. If she accomplished something like this for a bachelor in his 30s like Duncan, the Lewises would undoubtedly reward her generously." Duncan fell silent momentarily before confessing, "Grandma May has such a youthful spirit. Her antics today startled me, to be honest. I can't even face her. I'm getting this odd sense of guilt." Deciding to change the subject, Duncan asked, "Moving on, are we meeting for dinner tonight?" "No, not tonight. My wife's preparing dinner for me at home. I've been dealing with a bit of a stomach issue lately, so she's ensuring I'm well fed and cared for." Detecting a hint of boastfulness in Zachary's tone, Duncan decided to end the call with a simple, "All right then. Just needed to vent. Take care." Quietly acknowledging the end of the conversation, Duncan hung up. So what if Zachary was married? Duncan could tie the knot if he chose to. Zachary seemed to revel in his marital status as if the rest of them couldn't find spouses. Before Jim could deliver his dinner, Zachary left work slightly past 4 in the afternoon. Accompanied by his security team, he made his way to Wiltspoon School. John's car was parked conspicuously outside the shop, all 4 tires flat. It was an eye-catching sight for anyone passing by. Although John contemplated calling a tow truck to remove his car, he hesitated to do so during daylight hours, fearing Serenity's reaction. John planned to wait until her shop closed to arrange for his car to be towed and the tires replaced. Upon Zachary's arrival at the bookshop, Elisa was already there. "Elisa, you're here," Zachary greeted, feeling slightly less awkward around her since their recent conversation as cousins-in-law. Zachary had no conflicting emotions about the situation. While Elisa was a few years younger than him, she happened to be Serenity's elder cousin. Thus, there was no need for him to feel awkward recognizing Elisa as his older cousin-in-law. "Yeah, I came to pick Saren up. Did you skip work to come here?" "I left work early after completing my tasks. Nobody would raise any objections," Zachary responded in his characteristic husky voice. Elisa slightly puckered her lips. Being the head of York Corporation granted Zachary the authority to dictate his own schedule. Nobody would dare question his actions, even if he decided to skip work for an extended period of time. "Mr. York is certainly a busy individual, but he's not too busy when it involves Saren," Elisa playfully teased. In the past, Zachary had rarely found time to meet Elisa. Now that she discovered that time wasn't the issue, rather, he simply wasn't interested in her, the truth became evident. If Zachary truly had feelings for her, he would make time, regardless of his busy schedule. Coming to terms with this revelation, Elisa experienced a moment of clarity. Zachary was an exceptional man, but she was a remarkable woman in her own right. The timing and compatibility just weren't there. Nevertheless, with so many opportunities out there, she remained optimistic about finding the right partner for herself. "Where's Saren?" Zachary inquired. "She mentioned that your stomach hasn't been cooperating lately, so she's been focused on ensuring you're consuming a balanced diet. She prepared an early dinner for you to enjoy later, but here you are. At least she doesn't need to make the delivery. Wait here, I'll call Saren over. By the way, couldn't you have brought a little something with you? It's surprising you came empty-handed. Where are your manners?" Zachary found himself momentarily at a loss for words. Elisa's witty remark had taken him by surprise. Only Serenity, who didn't pay much heed to formalities, had the ability to get accustomed to Zachary's ways. "Zachary, you're done with work early. I have a stew simmering on the stove, it should be ready shortly." As Serenity emerged from the kitchen, Zachary's expression relaxed at the sight of his wife. He felt pressure to get along with Elisa. On one hand, he was too proud to be overly accommodating. He didn't want to be unfriendly, fearing that Elisa might report any rudeness back to Serenity. "Saren, maybe you can chat with Zachary while I lend a hand in the kitchen," Elisa suggested, opting to step back and let the couple have some privacy. Before leaving, she leaned close to Serenity and whispered, "Zachary truly loves you. Drop the facade and cherish him. You'll be the happiest woman in Wiltspoon." With Zachary's growing comfort around her and his acknowledgement of their familial relationship, Elisa was content to offer her endorsement. She made her way to the kitchen, offering her assistance, though being an heiress didn't necessarily make her a skilled cook. She observed Jasmine and Mrs. Lane while they worked their culinary magic. Once Elisa had departed, Zachary turned to Serenity, his voice tinged with nervousness. "What did she say to you? Did she say anything negative about me?" Serenity pulled a chair for him to sit down. "Elisa mentioned that you're an exceptional man. She advised me to cherish you and warned me that I might regret it if I let you go. Don't always assume the worst about Elisa. Truthfully, she's never said anything negative about you to me." Prior to their reconciliation, Elisa had been an advocate for Zachary. According to her, if someone of her high standards admired him for years, he must be an extraordinary man. She encouraged Serenity to trust him wholeheartedly. Regarding Zachary's decision to conceal his identity, Elisa advised Serenity to stay upset for a few days but not let it drag on. She assured Serenity that she would regret taking things too far. Elisa felt a tinge of regret that she couldn't be the love of Zachary's life. However, she had settled into the role of his cousin-in-law and wished nothing but happiness for Serenity. Judging by the gleam in Zachary's dark eyes, he was caught off guard. He had expected Elisa to take this opportunity to undermine him in front of Serenity. He had seriously underestimated Elisa. "Is the car outside with the flat tires John's?" Zachary inquired. "Yes, that's his car," Serenity confirmed. Taking out his phone, Zachary declared, "I'll call the traffic police to have the car towed. It's obstructing traffic and needs to be removed." John secretly swung by twice to check on the car. "I suppose he's waiting for me to be absent so he can call the tow truck himself. His behavior is reminiscent of that of a thief," Serenity remarked sarcastically. "That reminds me, your cousin has scheduled surgery with a plastic surgeon. What appearance do you think she's aiming for?" Zachary inquired. Serenity's tone dripped with mischief as she responded, "She seems to want to resemble me and take my place. Since she's so keen on being someone else, let her go under the knife and look like my oldest cousin. She's Mike's sister, and she's married." Serenity relished the thought of causing a stir within her family by having Harriet adopt the appearance of Mike's sister. The Hunt family would surely be thrown into disarray when Harriet sported all the features of Mike's sibling. It promised to be quite the spectacle. "What's your oldest cousin's name? I'll inform Josh so he can look into it. If we get a photo of her, we can get Harriet to resemble Mike's sister," Zachary suggested. After Serenity disclosed her oldest cousin's name, Zachary swiftly messaged Josh with a simple command, "Make Harriet look like this woman." In response, Josh sent a voice note, "Zachary, did you leave work early again?" Zachary replied, "Yes, I did. Is that a problem? I thought everyone would be pleased."